Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Erica Steele. Welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to discuss the education myth and why holistic doctors are not quacks. If you are new to my channel, my name is Dr. Erica Steele. I'm a holistic doctor in family practice, really bringing you all things holistic health, but I also give you a lot of education about public health education, but also about holistic healthcare as a system, and how our system differs from your conventional medical model. So with that being said, our topic today is about the education myth. If you want to learn more about holistic healthcare and how our holistic healthcare system can help benefit you, definitely click any of the links below. We've got the discovery call, email, webinar, whatever type of contact that you're into, we have it below. All right, let's jump into the topic. So I get this often, and again, this is back to that superiority bias that we've been talking about on the channel, that there is one type of profession that is better than another. Okay, so let's talk about education as a whole to become a doctor, right? So to call yourself a doctor, you have to have completed a certain amount of education to have a designation known as a doctorate. So typically the path for most people is you'll do a bachelor's, or in my case, I started with an associate's because I really didn't know the path I wanted to go into in terms of what aspect. So I started off in psychology, quickly realized, wait a second, I need to heal myself. So then I went into a bachelor's in natural healthcare sciences and then a bachelor's in alternative medicine. So, most, providers, whether you are conventional or non-conventional, you go through a bachelor's process, right? If you are a naturopathic doctor, or if you are a medical doctor, or you're if you are somebody that is a doctor, then you are going, if you're a practitioner, practitioners are different. Practitioners a lot of times have certifications, or they've just been practicing, right? So there's a distinction there. Okay, and the distinction is in education. So you have a bachelor's, let's say biology, biochemistry, there's pre-med, there's various different bachelors that you can get. Again, mine was in natural healthcare sciences and alternative medicine. So I chose those two areas to get a education. The natural healthcare sciences covered my sciences, and then heavy into my sciences. And my alt med, while it did cover sciences, more of your kind of traditional sciences, it also extended all the modalities and made sure that I understood, how to recommend them. Okay. So you go through that undergrad, and then you have to complete a graduate level training. So that's a 4-year doctoral training. It's pretty rigorous. You have your coursework, you have clinicals you have to complete, you have all different types of requirements that are just a part of your profession. There's reading, there's paper writing, there's quizzes, there's activities, there's assignments, there's group projects. It's like any other education, and so we have the same, structure of the education. It's just what we study is very different. So where a conventional doctor is going to train more in the pathology, they're going to train more in the disease process, they're going to train more in the treatment of disease process. We as naturopaths or holistic doctors, we're trained in the health of the body. So we're trained in nutrition, we're trained in mindset training, we're trained in emotional modalities, we're trained in neurofeedback, biofeedback, applied psychophysiology, we're trained in detoxification practices, we're trained in laboratory because we need to be able to track things. So everything is just natural. So instead of learning about pharmaceuticals and which pharmaceuticals help with what, we're learning about which toxin creates these symptoms, and which natural substances, whether they are supplements, herbs, homeopaths, diet, lifestyle changes, mindset shifts, whatever, what can be done in order to rectify that in the proper order that they need to be done with, right? So it's one is learning disease, heavy disease. One is learning health, heavy. And that's why I always say, like, you have a choice. You can either choose health or you can choose disease. The choice is up to you, right? I didn't want to spend my life chasing disease, chasing how to fix broken things. I instead wanted to look at and learn how this thing called a body works. And I trust that the body was made perfectly. And so, because of that, I'm going to learn. I'm going to be a student of the body for the lifetime. And I'm going to learn how these things work. And I'm going to listen for clues. And I'm going to not know everything. In fact, I'm going to really forget that I even know anything, because I need to face every person as a unique, personalized individual with all different health data. So I don't go into appointments having that, having your chart notes usually in my mind, because I want to hear where you are in the present moment, right? Different way of thinking. So we're not quacks in the sense of, and it frustrates me when I hear like, oh, you're not a real doctor, or they're quacks or whatever. And I'm used to it. I've got a thick skin. I've been in this profession forever. But it's massive miseducation. Medical doctors don't own the word doctor. Now, allopaths have taken the word physician. So I am not a physician. I can't be a physician, because, and if I called myself a physician, I would be, acting outside of my scope of practice. And also, too, they could sue me because they own that word legally. But doctor, you don't own, medical doctors don't own the word doctor. There are doctors of education. There's doctors of, business. There's doctors of communication. There's doctorates in all profession. All a doctorate is a level of achievement past your undergrad. So again, 4-year undergrad, 4-year doctorate, right? So let's just start with that baseline understanding. So now, we talked about that baseline education. So now in conventional medicine, because of the systemic structures that have been set up, they control the AMA. They control who's licensed under the AMA. They control who practices under the AMA, and they can take away licenses under the AMA if you don't perform and act the way that they have conditioned you and trained you to do. So that system is also very dangerous, not only for the patient, but also the provider, because you're not allowed to think outside of the box. If what you're practicing is more cutting edge, right, and there is a systemic structure behind you that is in direct competition to your advancement, then there's, you're either going to lose your license, or you're going to be heavily reprimanded, you're going to be laughed out of the field. There's all kinds of things, all kinds of consequences that happen if you are not operating not only under that system, but you are carrying out their will for you, because are covered with standard of practice, right? And I'm not saying that having a system is not important, because by all means, having a system is absolutely incredibly important. However, when that system is then it can be used to weaponize providers. I mean, we're seeing that now with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Doctors are trained to perform these procedures, life-saving procedures, but because of legislation, they are not allowed to save the patient. And so they are, especially in Texas, they literally have to go against their oath to do no harm and watch these patients unalive. And so I could not do that. I could not stand complicit in a system. I wasn't in the mindset of I'm going into the system to change, because as an Afro-Indigenous person, and a Black person, I already knew that that wasn't going to work, right? It was a slippery slope. I may not have known it in mind at that time, but on some higher level plane, I did know. So we're not a part of that system. So in jurisprudence, right, which is how we practice legally, we practice on our certification. So just like the chiropractors have their own, boards, we have our own boards, as naturopaths, and we're building boards for holistic doctors, because we do need separation, even outside of, because there's a lot of people calling themselves holistic doctors that are not practicing true holistic medicine, that don't have any cultural attachment to it, that are literally just doing a whole bunch of supplements, or they're a conventional doctor and they didn't want to treat that way anymore because of the system. So they come over to our side, but they use their medical, doctorate to create a superiority bias, like they know. But they're leaving their profession. In essence, they have to start from the bottom in our profession and work their way up to learn. They can't come in at the top of their profession and then you transfer over and now you're on the top of our profession. It doesn't work that way. If you transition from this profession to ours, you have to start from the bottom. Your baseline education is not always going to transfer because it's a diagnose and manage model, not Bechamp's environmental model. So you have to unlearn what you've learned in order to approach the patient from a holistic perspective. So even in functional medicine's not holistic. It's just a functional, it's supporting the functional organs. That's why it's so supplement heavy, because it's missing all of the nuance of the mental, emotional, psychosocial, spiritual aspect of it. And even in the world of psychology and mental health, they're only dealing with the psychological and the emotional. They don't really touch on the spiritual. And even if it is spiritual based, a lot of times it's more religious based. It's not teaching you how to truly connect. And a lot of times the super heavy spiritual things are missing a lot of the scientific principles, and also a lot of the psychological principles. So it can be incredibly harmful. So you see all these different worlds, right? And when you're working with a holistic doctor, we're bringing all of these worlds together. Now we have certifications. So we have national certifications, we have board certifications, also too, there are, I did like a methyl genetics certification. I did certified functional medicine. I did certified in integrative medicine. I did clinical hypnotherapy. I did all of these different certifications. I did several yoga trainings, so all of these different certifications. So I operate under my certifications, not under licensure. And so when I've done legislation, we've looked at possibility of licensure, but then we're dealing with stakeholders, right? And there are a lot of vested interest in us being locked out of the system. See, because it's the general public's consensus, which you've been taught, that that licensure is the gold standard. Right? Licensure is actually not the gold standard, but that's what the general public believes, that if you are a licensed professional, you are better. But truly, as a licensed professional, I can attack you more. If I don't like what you said to me in the treatment because it triggered me emotionally, now I can call this licensing board on you and take away your livelihood because I didn't like what you said, right? Even if what you said was true, I'm going to weaponize this system against you. And how I know this is because it was done to me for years. I would do my job, right, as it is designed, and do the work, right? And people would get triggered, or they'd get upset, or they'd get, a gas. They have to actually pay me, like there was all these different craziness, and they would go to the board of medicine or the board of nursing or the board of this. I even had staff, right, that went to the board of nursing and just flat out lied, and it was us again. They're not going to believe me, and they didn't. And even when I brought all of my documentation and my deans wrote letters and all kinds of things, it didn't fit into their model, so they couldn't see it, right? Because the conventional system, it's you either are or you're not. You're either with us or you're against us. There's no nuance. And because naturopaths don't have national recognition, we don't have the legislative really backing and the protections, because we have another group who wants to prescribe drugs and wants to do surgery and wants to again erase our natural practices, and I refuse to erase that. So we're in a standstill. And then even in our profession don't recognize the contributions of Black people and Afro-Indigenous people to holistic medicine. Again, it's whitewashed. It's white male driven. It's, we're intellectualizing this. It's we're profiting off of this. It's superiority. And so again, the women healers are missed. The Black healers are missed. The brown healers are missed. Healers that look different than YT structures are often shut out and not perceived as qualified, credible. I'm not saying across the board. I'm just simply pointing out, holistic medicine, there are not a lot of us, okay? And the people that have been fighting for this have been doing it for a long, long time. And there's varying degrees and expressions of that. There are people that have no formal education that literally just trained in the bush. And then there are people like me who've had a hybrid of both. And then there's people that have literally just gone to school and it's just book knowledge that they're giving you. So there's a lot of nuance and a lot of confusion and a lot of disinformation that we are working on trying to organize. So we talked about this a little bit, but let's get more in depth. So the allopathic training model is this. It is a diagnose and manage model. It is designed to teach the doctors to identify the pathologies. They identify the diseases. They're looking for symptoms. It's symptom management. So you as a patient, you come to them with all the symptoms and they have all the answers, either the pills or the surgery or the procedures to correct your ailments, right? However, it's very short-sighted. It lacks depth. It lacks scientific process most of the time. It's heavily corrupted, et cetera. Need I go on? So the system itself doesn't necessarily work in a healing model, right? It's in a management model. It's necessary for acute care. It's necessary for emergency care. It's necessary for certain chronic diseases in certain applications, but it's not this across the board, everybody gets, a car sort of mindset. It's not like that. In or at least it is like that in conventional medicine, but that's not how it works. It translates in holistic. So holistic, we have to learn about each organ system individually and how each organ system, its relationship with one another. But then it goes deeper than that. We have to look at the environment to which we put everything in. Then we look at the mental state of the person in terms of what's driving habits, behaviors, experiences, etc. We look at the subconscious mind as well in terms of what traumas that they have not processed through, looked at, addressed, etc. Then from there, right, we have to get all that out on the table. From there, we're changing habits, right? We're coaching in a sense. We're going, okay, this is how you prioritize yourself. This is how you structure your time. This is how you meal prep. This is how you plan. This is, what you need to eat, how you need to eat it, when you need to eat it to achieve the results. Here's a compounded supplement that's just for you. That's based off of your lab work. This is what your lab work means, and again and again and again, this is how you deal with this situation, that situation. This is what critical decision making looks like. This is what trauma response looks like, etc. Like there's so much education. Our number one, that's why I have so many degrees, is because I've had to learn about these different facets of what makes up a human being so I can treat the whole human safely, but also too to really understand the relationship that these systems have with another. So you have to slow way down in my profession. It's a lot more clues. It's a lot more critical thinking. It's not reactive at all. And it's progressive and it builds. So it's a different model of thinking. And so part of the myths are that, again, we're undereducated, which is, it's 7 degrees. What more is needed to say, what, this is something, right? And in terms of, accreditation, some of the schools are accredited under our naturopathic bodies because of the history of colonization and the marginalization of our profession, etc., right? And some of those schools are under the Department of Education, regionally accredited, all of those things. So I have a combination, a hybrid of both. But neither one is better or worse than the other. These schools can apply and become part of the regionally accredited, but unfortunately, our schools went through the time period where they were targets. The conventional medical community targeted them greatly, heavily, and really destroyed our profession and made sure that there was little to nothing left of our profession. And so we're trying to hold on here in 2024, get more people trained, get more people educated so that we can maintain this, because otherwise these corporate structures in healthcare that profit off of our sickness are going to take over, and you're not going to know the forest for the trees. By the time you wake up, it's going to be too late. They're already in the hen house. They're already allowed to do so much, ask your doctor, blah, 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 being able to advertise for pharmaceutical drugs, to indoctrinate you to ask for them, it should be criminal. And like-minded. I don't think, going on like a QVC style thing and selling, supplements is a good idea either. So I'm equal opportunity. I think that, any sort of supplementation really is reserved for clinical practice, understanding your health data and understanding, what to take, because taking things can be harmful even if it's natural. So just want to make sure people understand, like, we're not undereducated. We are real doctors. We just go through a different training that is heavily scrutinized, heavily disregarded as quackery, as negative, as whatever. But again, it was never about the scientific structure, because oftentimes, like, we've gone through this year and year. If you look at the historical, like, for instance, there was a time where when the allopaths gave George Washington too much arsenic and he passed away, there was a huge fear of, oh my gosh, we don't want to be, we don't want to treat with these. So then there was a huge shift back to homeopathy, right? And so then, of course, the powers that be were like, oh no, now we need to teach these people that homeopaths are bad and they're evil, and they lack science, even though we've shown them 1,000 studies. So it's a whole system that's designed to keep you unwell, overweight, desperate, anxiety ridden. The whole system was built that way. So there's a lot of research out there on effectiveness of holistic treatments. So we won't get into peer reviewing, and we won't get into research and how biased it is these days. But with even all the bias, there still is research out there on the effectiveness of holistic treatments. I definitely would look outside of the United States for a lot of studies, just to fact check, and also look at studies that were quote unquote debunked, but still have a lot of validity, and maybe were debunked before they were given a chance because of bias, because of corruption. So just think about that when we're dealing with it. I do want to point out some research that prompted this particular video. So the first one is really going into the educational rigor. So this one is by Jules Tenan, I believe. I always butcher these people's names. I apologize. 2009. That was more for naturopathic medical education. Now, remember, a naturopathic medical doctor tries to do this hybrid thing where they build conventional along with natural. I don't agree with it, but it is a practice. So I wanted to make sure I brought that out there. Keller, nature doctors, those were the pioneers in naturopathy. In my opinion, that book is heavily whitewashed, doesn't go into anything with Afro-Indigenous contributions, but it does go over more of the European contributions of natural health and natural health care. Mazrul, 2005, did Afro-American healing traditions. So that really goes into our rich history and our contributions to these models, emphasizing how traditional African healing systems are rooted in deep connection of nature, spirituality, and community-based practices. So very important, talks a lot about herbal medicine, ritual medicine, spiritual practices, combined with that community wellness and preventative care support. Gone, which is an author, researcher, 2010. He did a book, or they did a book, I apologize if it's a woman, Cultural Psychology and Indigenous Healing, which again addresses those Afro-Indigenous contributions by showcasing, again, this ancestral knowledge, interconnectedness of health, and really talks about this community-based healing. And then the comparison between allopathic and holistic education, Weeks and Woltlick, I believe, 2017, globalization of integrative medicine, really again focusing on prevention, root cause, and allopathic obviously focusing more on symptomatic treatment. So it talks about both practices and really looks at it from a critical psychology lens. And then finally, the effectiveness of holistic treatments, a 2019 study by Smith et al. On the efficiency of holistic treatments, specifically in management of chronic disease. So chronic lifestyle disease are leading drivers right now in healthcare, especially in Black and Brown communities and Indigenous communities. And so, taking this time out to really connect back with your roots I just cannot speak that enough. So there's lots of studies out there that talk about what we are reviewing. It's just having an open mind to being able to see something different and not just slowly, just dismissing it right off the bat simply because it's something new or something you not exposed to. I see that often where I'll explain something and it's not the way that they think it should be explained because again, I have different level training, higher level training. So, the superiority thinking that when you come to me with a simple question that you're going to get, with a question based off of your limited knowledge that you're going to get a simple answer. Sorry, the rains are, you kind of started up, that you're going to get a simple answer. And that's just not accurate. If you go to somebody who's done the extensive amount of research and training and education experience that I have, you would expect to not get a simple answer in response. So there are no stupid questions. Absolutely ask away. But, maybe instead of initially asking a question, and then if you get an answer that you weren't expecting, maybe asking another question, another question, another question, and you getting to the bottom of it and understanding how I got to that decision. Because again, it's not a soundbite, and I'm not going to spend energy defending what I've spent an entire lifetime studying. I'm on an energy economy right now, so I'm not interested in defending my knowledge, my wisdom, etc. If you want the information in terms or the thought process, I'm happy to do that. And then that way you can go down the rabbit holes, but I'm not convincing anybody. Believe me, don't believe me, it's fine. So with that being said, I just want to make sure that people understand there is multiple ways, right, to lead to the same thing. So if we're all looking for healing, we're looking for creating results with our health, we're looking to, be able to transform, right? Not everyone is going to go to the same practices, right? Not everyone is going to have a holistic lifestyle, and that's fine. There are some people who they are satisfied with diagnose and manage model. It's safe. They don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to change. They don't want to have to do the work. So thank God we have conventional medicine because that the synthetic drugs that they're taking can keep them alive, right? However, for the rest of us, prevention, meaning how we live in our youthful years, in our well years, and us, not just managing symptoms and not just managing disease, but actually taking a whole health stance in our mind, our spirit, our emotions, and our physical actions every single day. We're either choosing health or choosing disease. The choice is simply up to us. So there's tons of links below to connect, like, share, subscribe, comment for more information regarding holistic healthcare and how you and your family can live naturally.